Being a Helldiver is the biggest honor a citizen of Super Earth can hope to achieve, but with the war raging on two fronts across the galaxy, it's safe to say that new recruits might have been drafted with perhaps a little less training than they need. Not to worry though, in this video I'll be bringing you a whole bunch of tips and tricks to take you from cadet to a shining beacon of what it means to be a Helldiver in no time at all. Like for liberty, subscribe for Super Earth, now let's get you out there dispensing some democracy. Different enemies have different weak points. For example, larger automaton enemies may require you to aim for the head, and for devastators you can actually destroy their rocket packs to deal damage and neutralize a high priority threat. Brood commanders from the Terminids will go into a frenzy when you destroy their head, so taking out their legs first can be incredibly beneficial and make for a weaker target. Certain higher caliber weapons will have higher armor penetration, which is usually displayed when inspecting the weapon. The support machine gun, for example, will chip through armor that some regular weapons won't make a dent against. Try to learn which weapons will have the most effect against different targets as you progress to quickly take out larger threats for your team. Speaking of damage to weak spots, you might not know that explosive damage does increased damage to these areas. This is the main use for the explosive damage modifier in Helldivers, allowing you to quickly dispatch targets with exposed areas. If you have the premium battle pass, the first weapon you pick up from this pass has explosive damage and is relatively easy to get. Enemy patrols will call for reinforcements if you don't deal with them quickly. Consider using stratagems to take out patrols quickly, or organize attacking them as a team so that things don't start to spiral out of control. Quickly dealing with a patrol means less enemies overall, so don't be shy on using your stratagems or ordnance to get the job done. Once you unlock the orbital laser stratagem, consider bringing one or two on every automaton mission you undertake. Not only is it a great tool in a panic situation to clear out large amounts of targets, it also destroys automaton structures. This includes fabricator spawners, mortar emplacements, and even those incredibly annoying towers with the big cannons. You can quite literally decimate an entire outpost without going near it with one of these. Some objectives will have objective critical stratagems like hell bombs that you are expected to use to destroy said objectives. However, it's worth noting that if you're aiming to destroy a building, you can use other ordnance options like orbital strikes, and specifically with the illegal broadcasts, you can even get away with just using a grenade to take them down, or a single shot from a weapon like the autocannon. If you're short on time, this allows you to complete the objective from a distance and move on as fast as possible. If you have an objective to destroy a rogue science station, the only building you actually need to destroy for these objectives to be marked as complete is the grey one. You can do this with the hell bomb provided or with an orbital strike, but the other two buildings do not need destroying. Dropping hot in Helldivers isn't always as bad as you think. Secondary objectives never have enemy spawners in the area, meaning if you want to, you can quickly drop in, clear up the enemies in the area, and have one objective down right away. You'll find time is of the essence as you increase difficulties, so knocking out an objective straight away is a huge help. Obviously, you risk dealing with reinforcements with this method too, and the choice is ultimately yours. The autocannon might have more uses than you initially think. Not only is it incredibly powerful against certain automaton units, it can actually destroy their fabricator spawners too. You'll need to get a straight shot, but if you aim for the little metal lid just above each of the vents where you'd usually huck a grenade, you can actually ricochet a single round into the fabricator and take it out. Simple, easy, and can be done from a distance before you even engage the enemy. The longer your presence in a mission, the larger the enemy presence there will be in the area. As you start to get towards difficulty 6 and 7, you'll notice that after about 15 minutes remain in the mission, things can really get out of hand if you're not careful. Wherever possible, you want to maximize your time to destroy as many spawners as you can before this point. And if you reach 15 minutes left, consider getting any remaining essential components to your mission completed and extracting before things really start to get tough to manage. Did you know there's actually stealth in Helldivers 2? You can crawl right up to enemies and they won't actually notice you're there. If you want to splinter off from your group and take out a smaller outpost by yourself, or God forbid, you're playing solo, this actually becomes a viable option. You can crawl right through the enemy lines until you're close enough to pop a grenade into their spawner. You can also double melee the standard weaker units to kill them, and as long as no other enemies are actually looking at you, they won't spot you doing this. Even with firearms, if you kill a unit but stay out of sight, you won't be immediately spotted. The enemies in the area will begin searching for you, but as long as you take out enemies quickly and they don't see you doing it, you can stay hidden for a little while. Then again, is this really the democratic way of bringing liberty to foreign planets? Well, probably not. If you find one of these holes in the ground in Helldivers, they can actually be used to your advantage or just for some funny moments. The blast radius isn't very large, but it's great for introducing new friends to the brutality of Helldivers. Throw a grenade down there and watch the fireworks. When you get up to the higher difficulties and are looking for super rare samples, keep an eye out for these towers that look like they have some silver veins running through them. Floating globes of silver substance will give you the samples you're looking for and will be scattered around the edges of them. Environmental hazards are present in Helldivers 2. Watch out for spore sacks, mines, or blue flowers on ice planets, to name just a few, that could affect your movement and damage you when activating them. Helldivers 2 is a harsh environment, to say the least. It's not all bad though. We can actually use these spores by shooting them when we're close by, launching you through the air. It'll do a little bit of damage, but it's negligible, and could give you a quick escape when you need it most. Enemies will also walk over these plants and damage themselves by doing so kiting enemies over patches where there are some dangerous flora isn't a bad idea. Automaton units can be suppressed. The more fire you put down range, the less accurate they become, so sometimes it can pay just to keep pulling the trigger and send some lead down range. You'd be surprised how effective this can actually be when employing a leapfrog maneuver, with one or two teammates laying down covering fire whilst the others move, then reversing the roles. Automaton dropships can be taken out before they hit the ground, with their weak spot being any of the 4 thrusters on the ship. It won't kill everyone aboard, but usually it will kill more than a few. Consider carefully whether you want to expend rocket ammunition on this, or whether it may just be easier to drop ordnance as it offloads bots onto the field. A bunch of weapons in Helldivers have alternate fire options that you can access when you hit the ground. This could be something as simple as turning on a flashlight, increasing your zoom level for marksman rifles, or in some cases, even ramp up the fire rates of a weapon. The MG43 and the Stalwart, for example, can reach blistering speeds at higher fire rates, allowing you to dispense lead and freedom indiscriminately to all enemies in your path. One-handed weapons like pistols and SMGs might have more uses than you initially think. SMGs especially, since you'll be able to use your primary whilst carrying objective items like SSDs, but also whilst using a ballistic shield, if you choose to use that as your stratagem. What you might not know is that if you fire without aiming down sights whilst looking behind you, one-handed weapons will be blind fired and you can continue shooting whilst moving. Ordinary weapons cause you to stop in place and turn if you were to do the same thing, so they can be great if you're on the run and need to lay down suppressing fire. Chargers are a fairly tough enemy to come up against, especially in numbers. One thing you might not know about them is that if you lead them into a solid surface whilst charging, it'll actually stun them for a few seconds, giving you time to circle around and hit their big fleshy weak spot. And if you have a heavy weapon like a launcher or a railgun, the best place to shoot them is always one of their front 2 legs. Take the armor off one of these 2 legs and your team will be able to absolutely destroy them incredibly quickly with their regular weapons by attacking the new weak spot that you've created. Stalkers, which are the invisible terminids you'll come across in some missions, are an absolute pain to deal with. Destroying their hive is the only way to stop them from following you. If you damage one heavily, they'll actually retreat sometimes to their hive, so you can let them go and track them back to their hidey hole for an easy kill. When reinforcing your teammates, consider where you put them carefully. If you're being overwhelmed, dropping them right in the middle of the fray might not be a good idea, but then again, you can use the drop pod itself to kill larger targets like chargers or even bile titans. Even if it doesn't quite kill them, it'll do a huge amount of damage, so it can really help in select situations. On certain missions, you might notice that your vision becomes impaired, and that the area is covered with a layer of this sickly green fog. This is the work of a spore spewer, which basically is a giant space mushroom. You might think that you need to use explosive weaponry or get close to it like we did on our first few missions, but they're actually much easier to take out than that. Locate the overgrown fungi, then dump a couple of magazines, and you should find it clears up in no time at all. Don't be afraid to get creative and use terrain to your advantage, especially against the Terminids. Climbing up on a large rock, for example, will give you an elevated position, but also make it harder for the bugs to reach you. They will climb their way up to you, but they'll do so at a reduced movement speed, and this can buy you some serious amounts of time to lay down fire. So that's it from me in this one. Hopefully this video taught you some things that you missed out on in basic, and you can get back out there knowing that you're doing your democratic duty to the best of your ability. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you all in the next one.